There is a moment in corporate history where a company stops building products and starts building spreadsheets. For Boeing, that moment arrived on a rainy afternoon in 1997, and the world is still paying the price. By April 2026, the once unassailable king of the skies is buried under $54 billion of debt and a reputation that has been ground into the tarmac. Under new CEO Kelly Ortberg, the company is desperately trying to bring the soul back to Seattle, but the damage from a 20-year experiment in greed has already been exposed. This isn't just a story about airplanes that fall from the sky. It's a forensic investigation into how one of the world's greatest engineering firms was cannibalized from the inside out. In the mid-90s, Boeing was run by engineers. Decisions were made on the factory floor, not in the boardroom. If a mechanic found a loose bolt, production stopped. No questions asked. Then came the merger with McDonnell Douglas. On paper, it was a strategic masterstroke. In reality, it was a cultural assassination. The McDonnell Douglas executive team, led by Harry Stonecipher, didn't care about the next great wing. They cared about the next great dividend. Stonecipher famously said, "When people say I changed the culture of Boeing, that's the intent, so that it's run like a business rather than a great engineering firm." The results were immediate and profitable. Between 2010 and 2019, Boeing spent over $43 billion on stock buybacks. That is $43 billion that didn't go into safety systems, didn't go into a new clean sheet aircraft design, and didn't go into training. Instead of building a new plane to compete with the Airbus A320neo, Boeing took a shortcut. They took a 1960s airframe, slapped on massive new engines, and tried to fix the physics with software. They called it the 737 MAX. To keep the business running smoothly, they buried the existence of a new software system called MCAS. They told regulators and pilots that the plane handled exactly like the old ones. We all know what happened next. 346 people lost their lives in 2 crashes that were entirely preventable. But the exposure of Boeing's greed didn't stop there. Fast forward to January 2024. A door plug blows out of an Alaska Airlines flight at 16,000 feet. The investigation found that the plane had left the factory without the 4 critical bolts needed to hold the door in place. By 2026, we've learned why. Boeing had outsourced its core manufacturing to Spirit AeroSystems, a company they had spun off years earlier just to get the assets off their balance sheet. The mechanics at Spirit were overworked, underpaid, and pressured to travel work, sending unfinished parts to the next station just to keep the line moving. As of this month, April 2026, Boeing has officially reacquired Spirit AeroSystems for $4.7 billion. They are literally buying back the mistakes they made 20 years ago. But the cost of that reversal is staggering. Boeing's debt wall is looming, with $8 billion in maturities coming due later this year. While the new CEO has moved his office back to Seattle to be near the factories, he has inherited a workforce that is demoralized and a regulatory environment where the FAA now literally lives on the assembly line. In Q1 of 2026, Boeing reported a surprise profit, but it was driven by clearing a backlog of old planes, not by a vision for the future. The engineering nightmare is that Boeing hasn't designed a truly new airplane in nearly 15 years. They are stuck in a cycle of rework and regret. The business lesson here is a warning to every CEO on the planet. You can outsource your parts, but you cannot outsource your responsibility. When you prioritize the stock price over the product, the market will eventually correct you, and that correction is measured in billions of dollars and human lives. Boeing is currently in a race against time. If they can't certify the 777X by 2027 and pay down their $54 billion debt, they risk becoming a ward of the state. An American giant, exposed not by a competitor, but by its own balance sheet. If you want to understand the forces that are really moving the global economy, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe to join our investigation into the next corporate case file. And tell us in the comments, after everything you've seen, would you feel safe flying on a Boeing aircraft today?